This is the good, the bad, and the ugly of Doom 64. While playing through Doom 64 for the first time, I kept flip-flopping on how I felt about the game, so going with the good, the bad, and the ugly theme seemed like an appropriate way for me to break it down. There's plenty to talk about in each of the three categories, but we're going to start off on a positive note and start with the good. The thing that will immediately jump out at you in Doom 64 is the visuals, and I quickly became a fan of the visuals in this game. This was the second level in the game, and you got this awesome use of color and contrast. This area gave me flashbacks to my childhood going to play laser tag in the late 90s. You then find yourself in this more dull-looking area, but with this beautiful sky full of stars. You get a nice range of colors in even the most basic looking areas with the greens, red, and purple you see here, and then you also get areas that look absolutely insane. This just looks so cool with the green flames, and then you also get some areas with some more old-fashioned orange flames as well. The color palette just goes crazy in this game as we get some blue and purple here and another nice sky. You'll also see one of the redesigned monsters in this clip with the Arachnotron. This is a monster design that I like in Doom 64, which I can't say about all of them, but I also like the Pinky, which is pretty true to the original, so it's a safe design, but they look nice and menacing. As for the weapons in this game, I think you gotta love the new chainsaw. It's a dual chainsaw now, and what's not to love about that? I also like what they did with the chain gun, with how the firing animation looks, and especially that purple muzzle flash at the end of the barrel. I'm also a big fan of the plasma rifle, with how you can see the electricity coursing through it down the middle. The BFG looks nice and beefy as it should, and I also like the animation at the nose of the gun as you fire it. Something else I think is good about the game is how they innovated with some of the level designs. This area we saw earlier when talking about the sky actually changes as you progress through the level. As you trigger these cylinders to pound the ground, a new area opens up, which is a cool way of them utilizing space in the game. There are multiple examples of the levels changing in front of your eyes, adding a new dynamic to the level designs that I think was a good innovation in some but not all cases, which we'll get to later. And if we're talking about levels, I gotta mention the last level of the game, which is absolutely epic and probably the best boss battle up until this point in the franchise. One last good thing I'll say about the game is it's a Doom game. It's true to the formula in many ways, like starting on a level with an enemy immediately in your crosshairs, but it also abandons the formula in several ways, and that brings us to the bad. In the video I made about Doom 2, I said that the only place to start talking about Doom 2 is with the super shotgun. Well, it pains me to say that's the same place we're starting off this section with. The super shotgun in Doom 2 was like Gohan at the end of the Cell Saga in Dragon Ball Z. The most badass and powerful thing I've ever seen. This visual here is actually what it feels like to shoot the super shotgun in Doom 2. But unfortunately, the super shotgun in Doom 64 is more like Gohan in Dragon Ball Super. It makes me sick. Let's do a quick comparison. Here's the super shotgun in Doom 2. And here's the super shotgun in Doom 64. It's not even close. The sound is terrible, the thing barely moves when you shoot it, and it just doesn't feel powerful at all. The satisfaction of using this gun is almost entirely stripped away in Doom 64, and that is such a travesty. With the sound off now, you can barely even tell that I'm shooting. And the same goes for the standard shotgun. Real quick, we'll do the same exercise. The standard shotgun isn't as egregious, but still a downgrade in my opinion. While we're comparing these clips, I also want to mention that the HUD in Doom 64 sucks. If we look at Doom 2, we get so much information on screen, but not in an overbearing way. We get to see how much ammo we have for each gun, we get to see Doom Guy's head make funny faces, and as we're switching weapons, we get the display at the top helping us switch to the right gun. In Doom 64, you don't get any of that. You don't get Doom Guy's head at the bottom, which is a huge loss. I have this paused at the moment of us switching guns so you can see that we don't get that helpful weapon wheel at the top, and honestly I can barely even read the text telling me which number is health and which number is armor at the bottom. Another part of the display that's missing is the little crosshair in the center of the screen, which doesn't seem so important, but it was very helpful when fighting enemies in the dark as it changes from green to yellow to indicate that you're aimed at an enemy. I really could have used that feature here as I'm quite literally taking shots in the dark. Certainly not the end of the world, but something I was missing during this encounter in particular. The next thing we need to talk about is enemy variety, which took a step back in this game as they removed some enemies. While I'll admit I did not miss having to deal with the Archvile burning me up, they also removed my guy, the Revenant, who is my favorite enemy in the franchise, so that was upsetting for me personally. And to make up for it, they only added one new enemy, and that's the Nightmare Imp, who is just a semi-invisible imp. Not an exciting addition as far as I'm concerned, and I also can't help but picture the putties from Power Rangers when I see them, which is not a good thing. Do you know what my biggest issue with the enemy variety is, though? Is that you just fight Hell Knights over and over again, one after another. Here I take one out. Oh, here comes another one. I'm just taking Hell Knights on all game. I'll take this guy out. Oh, geez. Thankfully, there's only one left. Oh, wait, no, there's a fourth one. Okay, yep, just one at a time. We'll just do this dance over and over again. It is brutal. It honestly became a running joke to myself that whenever there was a trap or an ambush, I would just say, oh, let me guess. Another Hell Knight. Not one, two. Oh, boy. Here's another one. Who could be behind that door? Oh, two Hell Knights, no way. I'll give them credit. It's not always two Hell Knights at a time. A lot of times it's just one, and you just do this sidestepping back and forth over and over again, the same move. Oh, at least this time, this hallway's a little more narrow, so it's more of a challenge. Kill me. This speaks to the level design in that it feels very claustrophobic at times with these narrow hallways, and that causes it to be you fighting one enemy at a time, which is not how Doom should be. And it honestly gets to the point where it feels like this.
Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy.
Doom thrives in the chaotic moments that get your heart pounding. They throw you into sticky situations, but also give you the tools to get out of that situation in a way that feels hard but fair. Doom 64 abandons all of that. To me, Doom 64 is the Dark Souls 2 of the franchise. Both of these games were made by a different dev team than its predecessor, and they both don't capture the essence of what made their predecessor great. People say From Software games like Dark Souls are at their best when you're fighting one enemy at a time. There's certainly exceptions to that, but most people would agree that gank fights are not fun, and that's something that Dark Souls 2 did not understand. The exact opposite goes for Doom, which in my opinion is more exhilarating the more enemies are on screen. So while these franchises thrive in opposite situations, both Doom 64 and Dark Souls 2 got those situations wrong and had their wires crossed toward the opposite ends of the spectrum from where they should be. In addition, Doom 64 has these annoying traps where it just feels like you're expected to die the first time without giving you a chance to fight back. Here's another one where the floor just falls out, and as far as I can tell, there's no getting out other than dying, and this is annoying, and if anything, it's going to make me slow down and be more cautious, which, again, anything to slow down Doom is a misstep in my opinion. These traps also reminded me of Dark Souls 2, which is filled with annoying moments like this, and is exemplified by this picture here of a ladder that leads to nowhere except you falling to your death if you go down it. And that's the last mention of Dark Souls, so we don't get too off topic here. Another trap room was this one that I originally thought was pretty cool, and I wasn't going to call it bad as it was exhilarating to run through these arrows to get to the key, but then I get to the other side and realize my best bet is to just stand here and wait it out, which again, we're just slowing the game down. The last trap I'll show is this one, which again felt like I was just expected to die the first time. I come in with a plan the second time to try to find the sweet spot to stay alive, but then I get stuck in this corner and cannot move, which leads into my final complaint about the game. The walls are so sticky in this game, it's ridiculous. I naturally get stuck here for a second, and then I go back to embellish a bit to see how bad it really is. You get hung up all over the place. I was in disbelief here that I got stuck on these blank walls in the corner of a room that had loot right there. To get stuck like this in a game that prioritizes fast-moving action is a travesty. Alright, I've complained for long enough. I think it's about time we have some fun. This section of the video is basically for aspects that I'm torn on, that I don't think are entirely good or bad, or they are truly just ugly. And if we're talking ugly, we have to start with the monster I've been teasing since the beginning, the Pain Elemental. They absolutely cooked with the design of the Pain Elemental in this game. It looks so ridiculous, it's so ugly, I actually love it. At first glance, it looks like he has a nasty beard, but he turns to the side and you see it's actually a mullet. It's so great. It looks like Rickety Cricket from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, if you're familiar with that, and this design was way ahead of its time as it has the Skrillex haircut that became popular in the 2010s. I really love how they got creative here, but of course this has to fit into the ugly category. There are some other ugly monsters as well, like the Kako Demon, who looks quite a bit different from its original design, and the Mancubus, who now looks like Krang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We also have a new gun that falls into this category. What is this gun? And that's not just me saying that, the game literally says it itself at the top. To be honest, the gun design looks pretty sweet and I love the name, the Unmaker, but you start shooting and I feel like I'm tickling these monsters. I mentioned laser tag at the beginning of this video, and I didn't expect there to be a second mention, but this feels like I'm playing laser tag. It feels like a needler from Halo if it never made the enemy explode. I saw that you can make this gun stronger by completing secret levels, so maybe once it's leveled up it's not so bad, but I don't want to be forced to do extra stuff. I want my Doom tight and to the point, so this gun lands in the ugly category for me. I gotta talk about the map. On screen now is the map from Doom 1993, which is perfect in being simple, but still giving us plenty of information. This is how the map opens up in Doom 64. Why do I care which flooring they have in certain areas? What am I supposed to do with that? Who is getting anything out of the map this zoomed in? And the map doesn't even mark the color-coded doors like it did in previous games. The map was originally in the bad category for me until I realized that you can zoom it out, so it's not so bad after all, but even then, every time you start a new level, you have to zoom the map out again, and that's inconvenient and wastes my time, which is something Doom games are not supposed to do. Another quick comparison to the previous games is the difficulty options. I don't think it's fair to call them bad, but I got more of a kick out of the ones we saw in the original games, so for me, the Doom 64 options are ugly to look at. Something I don't know if I would call it ugly, but I just had to share, is the graphic for the colored keys. I couldn't get it out of my head that it looked like the chocolate lady from SpongeBob. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, but I thought that was funny. And last but certainly not least, one of the most important parts of any Doom game, the music. Doom 64 is a departure from the blood-pumping metal we get in the first two games. They approach the music from a completely different angle with this droning, atmospheric music we'll take a quick listen to here. While I prefer the old music by a mile, I don't think you can call this music bad, as it achieves what it sets out to do, and I respect them for going with a different approach in this game. I do think it's fair to call this music ugly though, and that's kind of the point. That's where we're going to wrap this video up at. Doom 64 is an interesting entry in this iconic franchise. It does many things differently than the original games, some for better, some for worse. There were parts that made me smile, parts that made me angry, and parts that made me laugh. And that's why this was the good, the bad, and the ugly of Doom 64.